Dum 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 dum.
The city is mine, starting with the police headquarters.
Yeah, not so fast, Red Skull. Avengers, assemble!
Nine, what is this? The Hulk and I are here, Tony.
Natasha, where is the Falcon?
I don't know.
Hey guys, where is everyone? That's typical. They just left me. And what's with these cardboard villains anyway? I am out of here. Now hold on just 1 second. What do we have here?
Help me!
Alright, this is more like
Help me!
We're under attack!
Alright, everyone, to the exit. Now, you two, over there. Take that. And that. Crossbows, you're coming with me.
Hey guys, anybody?
Welcome to another episode of The Hobby. Today we are going to look at Marvel United. Marvel United is a pandemic-style boss battler, as I would call it, where you play a number of heroes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you fight the bosses, the villains, also from the Marvel Universe. Now, why do I call this the Cinematic Marvel Universe instead of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which are the movies? That is because Marvel United is, by definition, a puzzler kind of a game, a efficiency and a fast-moving, one-off kind of, like I said, pandemic-style boss battler, where you have to put out fires left and right. You have to knock out thugs, you have to rescue civilians, you have to defeat some of the villain henchmen that a boss sicks on you, and eventually defeat the boss themselves. Now, this is a very, very fun game, I have to admit. I am a campaign adventure game lover. I am mostly into fantasy, and I like a lot of story, none of which applies really to this type of game. This game does not originally come with a campaign. It is not a fantasy, it is superheroes, and it is also, not really a story-driven game. It has emergent story that follows from the epic fights that you have between heroes and villains, but it is mostly just a 30-minute tops kind of quick boss battler. Now, we are going to go into 4 segments where I discuss what has been brought to the game since its original conception and what I add to the game to make it even more cinematic. That involves some hobbying, that involves some house ruling, but as you will see, not very much because, this game is pretty perfect by itself, and I will say that up front. I'm not going to bury the lead on that. So the 4 parts are, I'm going to discuss a little bit about how the game itself plays and the experience that you have while playing the game, but everyone is quite familiar with that, so I won't stay too long with that particular point. Then I'll move on to what has been added to the game, which is a campaign, and that was first a fan-made campaign, and then later I think Simon actually added a official campaign to the game. And then the third part is essentially what my contribution to this game is to make it more cinematic, how I replace some of the components with components that you see here in the 4th part. And I'll also toss in a kind of a free how-to painting exercise where we're going to actually find out what the true purpose is, and for me at least, for contrast paints, which I have to admit I have not had so much success with up until now. But anyway, enough preamble, let's get to it. So the first part is the Marvel United game as it was conceived at first. So the Marvel United game is, like I said, a very fast-paced, very fun game with miniatures, because it is CMON, of course. And it has a very streamlined, very elegant, succinct system with components to go along with it. It doesn't have a lot of components, and as you see here, the setup is quite rudimentary, but it serves its purpose. You have 6 locations. You have, in the center, you have your villain boss with a tracker to keep track of their hit points, and also how many thugs, how many civilians, I think, yes, and how many threats you actually manage to succeed in during gameplay. Now, I'm hesitating as I'm talking about this game because in my mind I already play it slightly different than how the game rules explain. But don't be fooled. This is a very easy game to get into, quite family friendly. The chibis with the big heads and the sort of the neo anime kind of style, the super deformed style, lends itself really nicely to this game. Yeah, a lot of ums and ahs, as I'm prone to. Anyway, that's the rulebook. Let's put it to the side for a second. The game itself is, like I said, it's very fun. You can see it spread out here. I only put like 3 locations out there for now. I even put like the very beginner boss, the Red Skull, up there. Now, where are the heroes, you might ask? Well, let's stop and jump immediately to section 2, which explains the addition to the game since its conception. So the game did not come with a campaign originally. It was just a series of one-offs. And as you can see here, I have like my cadre of painted minis. This is a fraction of the painted minis that I have so far. Mind you, I have a lot more minis that have not even yet been painted, but you can see here, these are pretty much the standard beginners vanilla type heroes. You see, for instance, the original Avenger team here with Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and Black Widow. Hawkeye there to the right. Now, what is this thing underneath it that they are standing on? You'll see a number of lines. You see the big Avenger logo. You'll see the red boxes that surround the villains. This is the campaign that a big fan of Marvel United originally came up with. I forget his name momentarily, but I will put it down in the notes. And this was a campaign that was conceptualized in order to play through all the heroes and all the villains and make sort of, you know, a story out of it. And what you see here is the map that I just showed you. This is the starting point. This can be a starting point. There's also the X-Men expansion that, even though I have not filled out the campaign just yet. But the idea behind the campaign was that you start with 4 heroes, and each time a hero was KO'd, that is one step closer to an overall campaign defeat. But each time when you fight a villain, for instance, you could go here and fight the Taskmaster, you could, if you succeeded, unlock Shang-Chi. I think that's approximately how it works. Forgive me on this because it's been a while since I've played this. Also, I have not played very far into it, but there are keys that you can actually gain by defeating villains. You also get victory points, and those keys essentially unlock the heroes that are behind it. So, sorry, in this case, I think you get Shang-Chi for free, but like that key can be used to unlock Hawkeye. You also see some other symbols, like you would get like some free fighting actions in there, or there might be even like moving actions. There's probably also some wild cards up there that you can supplant with any other action, like moving, fighting, or rescuing, or doing something heroic. And the idea was that once you've kind of like defeated certain villains and unlocked certain heroes, like for instance, you could fight Rhino and Like you couldn't play Spider-Man unless you defeated Rhino. Again, I think this is approximately how it works. Don't hold me to this. But anyway, you could just keep on following the paths that lead outwards, and you could open up a whole new section. For instance, this is a very Spidey-centric section with the Sinister Six. And you could defeat all the enemies separately, and you could also like go into like the massive Sinister Six expanded boss battle, as it were. And the things that are highlighted here, because you can get like a print friendly version and a less print friendly version, but the idea was that you would take these maps and essentially just populate them with the characters that maybe you already have painted. At least that's the way that I do it. And then, for instance, here's the Fantastic Four. Say I would go in that direction. Then I would add the Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, and the Human Torch to it. And now I could start playing with those characters as well. As one would say, it is clobbering time. Oh, Ben Grimm. So that would be one direction that you could go in. You could also go, and sorry that is a little bit off camera right now, but you could also go the other direction, like I said, with the Spidey villains. You could go up to the X-Men universe, or you could even go down and continue that way. So there are all these maps, and like I said, the maps are very fun to sort of knit a campaign together by having these individual fights, these individual half-hour fights. And that brings it one step closer to making it one of my favorite games, because, you know, I love campaigns. If any kind of game comes out as a campaign, I'm far more likely to play it, because I want that evolving story to occur. One-offs are nice, especially when you're around a table with friends, and you know, it's a Friday night, you just want a quick game for half an hour. A nice little boss battler like this would suffice, because a lot of boss battlers out there, and I'll get into this in future videos, they can be pretty lengthy, especially because they had this long involved campaign. That is, again, the way that I like it, but this will do in a pinch as well. Now, we've talked a little bit about how the game plays. I have not really gone into the actions really, but they are pretty elementary. I went into it just a tiny little bit when explaining the campaign, but you basically, you have your deck of cards, your deck of actions. Let me see if I can find the Falcon. Here's the Falcon. Let's do a close-up of Falcon, because the minis are such a delight to paint. They really are. These chibi figures with the big old what do you call it? Areas. How did I not come up with areas? They're very fun to sort of just paint. They're very easy to paint. And my style of painting these minis, by the way, is just to use plain old acrylics. I don't do anything fancy with, you know, detailing it afterwards. I do a small little bit of details, but, you know, you put these minis on the table, and then you won't necessarily hold them up against your eye in close-up. So that will suffice. And we'll go into it a little bit in step 4 in a minute of how I do the further expanded cinematic experience that I now like. But anyway, these are the 4 actions. So you have beat a thug, or hit the main villain or his henchmen. You can move from location to location. And that is where we'll get to in just a moment, because that is a major aspect, besides not having a campaign, that really kind of irked me from the beginning. You can do a heroic action, which means usually fulfilling one of the tasks on a location. You can see here you need like 3 of these heroic actions to actually fulfill that threat, so to speak, because these are all threat cards. And the threat cards, they can have heroic actions that you have to do. They can have villains that you need to beat by clobbering them, or they could have some other special effect, especially with later on villains. They become a little bit more varied in that regard. But so yes, so jump between locations, beat up henchmen or the main villain. And then you also have a wild action, a wild card that basically allows you to do any one of those 3. And so how does this work? You have your, like I said, your deck of cards. You get a number of cards that you draw from the beginning, but mind you, this is your health. So when you run through these cards, you lose. If you end up with no cards left in your hand, you know, then it's just game over. But basically, these cards are so elementarily simple. You get like a little image of your character. The Falcon, for instance, here can move and can do an heroic action. This one says you can move and you can do like some kind of special action. Move to any location and clobber there. Very simple. There's another move here. Let's see. Oh, here's, for instance, these are combo moves. You can move and clobber. I like using the word clobber. Move, do a special heroic action, just clobber, or even 2 wilds. With the difficulty adjusted to make it more difficult, you leave these double wild cards out. I think even maybe like the regular wild cards. But with a campaign, I would suggest maybe leaving them in because you want to successfully go through the campaign. Mind you, whenever a character is KO'd, then you can essentially rely on like a different character to follow up. So say that here, for instance, I got the Fantastic Four and Mr. Fantastic, oh no, he got KO'd. Well, then there's only like 3 characters of the Fantastic Four, but if I had other characters like Captain America or Black Widow or something to supplement that, I could still keep on playing and then, you know, keep on playing until you have no more reserves of heroes to play with, at which point you lose the campaign. Many ways to lose, a few ways to win. But anyway, so you use these cards and you put them around the in this case the play mat in a circle, but you don't have to. You just put them like in a certain order to play them out. And say, for instance, I had Beast here as my co-player. I would play 2-handed, by the way, just because it's I don't know, it's my standard way of playing. But say the Beast went first and they played this card. They would place it down. Then it's my turn. I would place this card. But along with the actions that I get, I also get the actions that Beast previously did on their previous card, or whichever hero went before me. So you basically get a combination of those actions, which is kind of the spice of this game, because you never know what card someone else is going to put down unless you coordinate with them. And that just makes for a more interesting team up between heroes. Have I explained everything from the game? No. But that is kind of the essential, because now we're getting into point 3, which is the locations. Now, the locations are big for me. You get these cards that you put out, and they're just flimsy little cards, mind you. I think you can get them as tiles in a deluxe version, but they represent the various areas of the Marvel Universe. You can see out there, you have the Avengers Tower, New York Police Headquarters, and Times Square. These are in the core box, but you could also have like from other places, like this is the Infinity Gauntlet saga. You have the attack, of course, on New York. You have in Wakanda, Warrior Falls. These are all from the Rise of the Black Panther set. And, you know, here's Asgard, Asgard Tales of Asgard, the Bifrost Bridge. So it keeps on going, like Midtown High School, I think. Yeah, that's the Spider-Verse. You also have like tons of the X-Men expansion as well. So these cards are nice, but I find them to be very rudimentary, almost too rudimentary. What I really had hoped for when Marvel United initially was conceptualized would be more of I admit it, a dungeon crawler, to be honest. And I know that this is not that kind of game. Let me preface by saying that this is, once again, a perfectly balanced and detailed game. It doesn't need much more crunch. It doesn't need to be a dungeon crawler. But at the beginning, I kind of wish that it was. Like, I have so many dungeon crawlers and they're all in the fantasy or sci-fi or cyberpunk or Lovecraftian genre, but none in the superhero genre, at least not in the superhero genre or universe that I prefer, which is the Marvel Universe. I don't like DC as much, and so I never got into I think it's the Batman kind of scenario-based dungeon crawler, but I wished for Marvel to have something like that at that point in time. I didn't get it. That's fine. This is a perfectly serviceable game. Very fun. But it kept bubbling in the back of my brain, like, what if these locations all had their own dungeon tiles? And at one point in the future, I will maybe when I'm finished all with Marvel United, make my own dungeon crawler with very elegant, simplistic rules, so I can still go pew pew and zip zappity boo, and well, these are very old-fashioned noises, but you know, kind of like the superhero noises, and play with my toys, going across boards and fulfilling missions and do all that. Dice Throne, Marvel has it a little bit with a sort of a dungeon crawl, but none of these kind of games really appeal to me because I really liked the Marvel United style of the minis. I just wish that the locations were different. Where does it take me at this point? At this point, not really anywhere, because I'm just going to keep on playing the campaign. That's sufficient enough for me. But if you look at it by taking a step back, this would be a point crawl kind of a dungeon crawler. So in role-playing terms, especially solo role-playing, you have something called point crawls, and that means that they don't highlight every room and every hallway of a location. They just give you like the interesting locations as succinct little areas that you hop to from one to another. And they are obviously not going to be next to each other. Like you won't find Avengers Tower right next to the New York police headquarters, for instance, or Times Square, especially not if you go into like Asgard or Wakanda. They definitely wouldn't be next to each other. So that removes a little bit of the immersion for me of saying like, okay, I play like this team of heroes. Why are they jumping willy-nilly from one place to another? And although you can still suspend your disbelief enough to make that emergent story happen, it is still more abstract, made by the fact that your character will just land on a space, do their action, and maybe even move on in the same action. Like if you had like a card like this, you would basically move to another location, hit someone, and your turn is over. And that's great gameplay wise, but thematically it misses a little something. And that's where my cinematic universe comes in. So just to walk you through it, say that I played this card and Falcon started here, and I've cleared this out, for instance, and I want to go to the next location because in this location there are still civilians to be rescued, and there are still thugs to be beaten. And let's just say Madam Hydra is here. She has 5 hit points, and you know, she's a threat, obviously, in this game. So I play this card, I go over here, and now I can choose to either take 1 health off of Madam Hydra's health, or I can, for instance, beat up one of these thugs. End of turn. What if that was something that was more cinematic? A little segue, I came at one point to a game store that had games for sale, and I bought Vengeance from Mighty Board Games for, I think it was like 20 euros or something. It was really dirt cheap. The box was a little scuffed up. It's obviously been a used copy, but you know, I had always been interested in that system, mainly because I knew about Fate Forge. Is it Fate Forge? I'll correct myself in a minute down here somewhere below if it's not Fate Forge. It's something with fate. But that game was fantasy, and that game even distilled the rules of Vengeance down to a much more succinct, almost Marvel United style or level of elegant design. And that game is fantastic. Vengeance itself, the theme, is that you're playing kind of like a John Wick character or a Kill Bill cinematic experience where you hop between boards. So I'm just going to bring up the boards here. So these are the boards that you would get. Now, I can't show you anything else really from Vengeance because I tossed it out. I cannibalized the game for basically just the minis and the boards, but I rested to say that you would build up your scenario with 6 steps leading up to the ultimate boss. And in each step, you would gather equipment, you would train in a montage session to get better, and then finally the fight will begin. You would land in one particular section, for instance, Novak trucking, this scenario. You would put your hero down on this icon, and you would populate the icons that you would see with characters. Oop, I just dropped the boss. Sorry, boss. I defeated the boss, yes. No, that's not how easy it goes. Actually, it's a quite challenging game, but it's a very fun game. But as you can see, every board comes with its own icons, and so you would populate them with low-level henchmen, mid-level henchmen, and sort of like specialist henchmen. You put them on the icons to show where they were. And then you would basically roll dice, combine them with cards to get your actions. And your actions could be indeed to move to another room and defeat one of the thugs. You'd go to another room and do the same. And meanwhile, if your turn was over, you could be like in a risky area where maybe you didn't manage to defeat one of them and they would smack you back. Or maybe they would move in and come and, really mess you up. But the point is that this game kind of sounds like Marvel United, right? You land in the spot, you defeat some henchmen, you do some heroic actions, and you maybe eventually even meet the boss. Or it could just be like a villain henchman of the boss. This set me to think that I could use these boards and these minis for Marvel United. Maybe you feel where I'm going here, but let's just say, so you have this board, I'm going to put it down here for a second, and for instance, you have the Times Square has, as you can see, it has 2 civilians, 2 blue civilians, 1 red henchman to be clobbered and these to be rescued. And for instance, it has a villain or a henchman. Like these are, this is a thug, and this would be a henchman. So you put like a little token there to show that you need to defeat Crossbones in this case. Now, I could easily translate that to this. So for instance, what I could do, I can use this as a backdrop, like, ooh, we are now in Times Square. I can even put like this down here just so I know that I'm fighting Crossbones. And this symbol is now where the henchman starts. Say that I start here, I have 2 civilians. Now, this of course doesn't match. Like the colors of the thugs in Vengeance don't match, the colors of the blue and the red of the civilians and the thugs. But that doesn't matter. Let's just say I put the civilians here and maybe there's a thug here instead of there or there who's threatening one of the civilians. Okay, that's cool. You come in as Falcon. Where'd Falcon go? Oh, Falcon flying over from New York Police Headquarters. And he lands here in Times Square. Now this may be like a little back alley of Times Square. So, here he is. He just landed there, comes here. Now what? Now you see like these tokens here. Let's replace him with the henchman. And here we go. So now, all of a sudden, I have a little tableau of what the fight looks like close up inside Times Square. So yes, I may still be there in Times Square, but I don't put the tokens up there. I see that it's Crossbones, but this would be the representation. Now, the only thing missing is, of course, some color. And so let's go over to the little painting session. Okay, we are now at my painting table. Ignore anything else that you see that is not strictly related now to the Marvel United painting session, because I am also painting in a different project that's for a later date, Sea of Legends and the Everrain. But for now, the painting session is going to concentrate on making the civilians, for instance, right here. I hope it's in shot because I'm not really behind the camera right now, but turn them into something that looks like this and make them a little bit more blue. Now, this is a very pale blue, and I'm going to explain why it's very pale and why I don't generally like painting with contrast colors from Citadel. They require a certain skill set. It's a tool like any other tool in the painting business. The acrylics, for instance, they are very nice for me because I've always traditionally been using them. I've also been using the Army Painter Air acrylics because they have a great viscosity to it and a great fluidity, yet containing the color pigmentation of the paints. This does not. For instance, the colors of Citadel paints, the contrast paints, are wildly different. Like if I show you this character, and I I'm just going to double check, see if they're actually in the shot here. Okay, these are in the shot. But like these two characters, they are vastly different in how deeply colored they are. Now, these are both zenithal primed at the beginning. So darker colored primed and then dry brushed with white. But you can see like the difference in contrast and the difference in depth of color. This is purple, obviously. This is blue, but it's a very watery kind of a blue. This is let's see, this is contrast Luxion purple. Yeah, contrast Luxion purple. And this is contrast Pillar Glacier, a very different kind of viscosity. And I have like shook this as if my life depended on it, but I can't get it much more blue than this. But you know what? This is fine, because when you compare it again to the token next to it, and this time it should be in focus, it is a very pale purple. That's fine. That's what I want. So we're going to touch those up a little bit in a minute. But yeah, bear with me. I'm just going to change the camera angle again. But these are the three brushes that I'm going to use. I'm going to use just a regular thicker brush. In this case, it's a regiment, Wargamer Regiment thicker brush, just to add a little bit of water for the dry brush, because as opposed to popular belief, dry brush shouldn't be completely dried. Should have like a little bit of moisture touched to it before you start dipping it into thick acrylic white. And then I just have like a cut off older brush that I'm using. What is this? This is a 3 brush to do a little bit more highlighting, where this is very homogeneous and very brute force, equal highlighting. Here I can actually highlight a little bit more the raised areas that really need to stand out in order to get a little bit more contrast before I apply the contrast paint. Or, as you will see in a minute, especially with the purple and the red figures, apply a little bit of highlights afterwards in a pale red and in a pale purple. Okay, so let's get started. Let me zoom in a little bit closer so I can keep an eye on the camera. All right, so here we go. A little close-up view, and let's start. So, a little mini session of how to zenithal and how to use contrast paints in, for me, the correct manner. I just add a little bit of water to my palette, just enough to sort of like just make the dry brush a little bit wet. Then I just use plain old acrylic paint. The thicker, almost the better, because I want that paint to really stick with it. Now, before I start, I have chosen these figures to be the most appropriate for that kind of character to be represented on the board. So for instance, you can see that the civilians don't necessarily have any guns. They still look vicious, because in the game of Vengeance, of course, they all are thugs. They all are characters who, you know, will beat you up to a bloody pulp. And so that is obviously not the look that we want for civilians in Marvel Universe. They're casual people just from the street. That doesn't mean that New Yorkers can't be tough. So this guy, pretty tough. He means business. Perhaps he's just like, you know, a guy in the street who picks up a chain and tries to like stave off Thanos or something, you know. Likewise, this character, she may have like a drill in her hand. That's fine enough. Like, she's a construction worker maybe, and she's got off duty, and she's like, well, you know, Spidey's in trouble. Let me go help him against Rhino and get my drill on board. Now you can see that these are already dry brushed. This is the end result, by the way, of the dry brushing phase before I actually apply the contrast paint, which you see here. Like this guy has a pistol, but he also looks kind of like a businessman. So if I were to like really make him look like a civilian who is in need of trouble, who can't defend themselves, I would just use my trusty knife to, for instance, just cut off the weapon, because I don't really need him to have a gun. So there you go. So now he doesn't have a gun anymore. Now he's just clenching his fist and is like, come on, Mysterio, bring it on. I will beat you or something. But also I need help. So, you know, Miss Marvel, come and help me. So anyway, end result of that. I'm quite happy actually with how he turned out, but you could actually apply like a second coating of Citadel blue. So let me start first by highlighting these, zenithaling them basically. I basically prime them in dark gray. I don't want to go black because Marvel United is a fairly colorful, bright colored game, and so I don't want the henchmen to be too dark. If you do want to repurpose these characters, for instance, for some other game that is a little bit more grimdark, then yes, I would recommend priming them in black as opposed to this dark gray. But dark gray for me sufficed, and let's start working with it. So grabbing my trusty dry brush. You can grab as big or small as you want. This is the, yeah, that's the mighty dry brush. And then this one, for instance, is the moderate dry brush. So the moderate dry brush obviously is smaller. The mighty dry brush is bigger. You can basically just use whichever one you feel most comfortable with. For my purposes, I don't really need a really small brush because these are just, you know, henchmen. All right, so I got my dry brush a little bit covered with some white. I made a little bit wet. Now there's a lot of paint on here still, and what you typically do is don't wipe it off on paper, but wipe it off on like just a piece of plyboard that, for instance, I have here. I just picked this off the street really. Washed it, of course, because it has to be somewhat hygienic. But then I just start rubbing the dry brush on that surface because the surface has enough grooves in it that it actually takes off a lot of the paint like a model otherwise would, and you don't want it on a model. Final test, I just put a little bit on my skin to see if how much actually comes off. Now I'm very pale by nature, but I don't know if you can catch it, but there's still quite a lot of paint on there. It's fine. The longer that I talk and the less that I paint, the more drier it will become. So let's just start applying it. I just brush it from top to down because light usually comes from above. And I just brush the mini very rough, but you can already see it's picking up details. It's picking up grooves, or it's creating the grooves by highlighting the ridges. And I'm sorry if the focus of the camera is going in and out, but this is basically it. So 30 seconds and I've done it. Doesn't look great, but doesn't have to because it's essentially now just a glorified token on your board. So I will do the other ones very quickly. I might actually even speed up the video because this is not a video where I'm talking very much. Although, you know what? You can fast forward yourself. I'm just going to talk a little bit like some people do on their painting miniatures. Tell you a little bit about my life. Things that don't really interest you, perhaps. Oh, see, now there's a lot of paint on here. Why? Because I didn't do the test. I should have done this test, and I could see that there's tons of paint still left on this one. So let's wipe it off a little bit more. You can see that my board is well used. I often dry brush in different colors as well, which we'll also do in a minute with these two characters. But yeah, and it's not like this is a mistake. I now have to like throw this miniature away. It's fine. Again, you won't even notice this as I have a whole bag of these henchmen from Vengeance. My apologies to Mighty Board for probably not getting the name right of, although I do think it is Fate Forge actually. Okay, this one is done. And this one, I'm just going to continue with this one because I think there's still a lot of white on there, but you can see there is definitely a difference between the non-contrast or the non-dry brushed and the dry brushed area. You can see that there's just, it picks up details much better. This guy has glasses on, by the way. So this is harder than I thought actually to film while I'm painting because I'm looking at the screen a little bit to make sure that you can actually see it a little bit, because otherwise everything is just going to be out of focus. But at the same time, actually just progressing with the actual painting itself in some reasonably manner, satisfactory manner. I also do the base, because the base is also going to get painted up. But that's up to you. If you think that the maps of Marvel United are pretty enough artwork-wise to see, and just put these minis on a clear base, by all means, you know, it's your game, it's your experience. Okay, I have done these. Now I'm going to do, just for a quick moment, skip the contrast step, because I want to just keep on using my dry brush for now, and highlight these a little bit so they actually look a little bit more like the blue one, and also like the tokens, a little bit more pale. And for that purpose, I'm not going to use the contrast paints, just because the contrast paints, they are made in such a way that they fill up grooves, and I don't want them to fill up grooves in this case. I am dry brushing, so I just want them to pick up the ridges. Now, I could, for instance, take this paint, from Army Painter, Coven Purple, is a lovely shade of pink, which is not completely white. I could do that, or even maybe just Alien Purple, because it's a little bit darker and actually fits the token maybe a little bit better. I think it's a little bit more reddish, but anyway, you can see on the cap and on the label that it is air paint, airbrush paint, and so that paint is generally more fluid. It has it's just more fluid. The viscosity is way up there. And so instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use Grimoire Purple, because I feel that this might actually be the right way to go, unless, let me see, I got Orc Blood. See, I don't have so many regular paints. These are regular acrylics. You can see by the white cap that they have, and they don't have the air on it. I don't know. Like, I feel like the Warlock Purple is getting too close to what a Thug is like. It's somewhere in between. So if I was smart, I could just like mix these two together. Not going to do that, to be honest. I'm just going to stick with Grimoire Purple, shake it up a little bit, and I'll just add it here to the board. Oh, I have not shook that up well enough. I have to say, I don't use these paints so often anymore, because I also, oh, you know what? Actually, that's something I could do right now. I also have miniature tubes of just regular acrylics, in this case from the brand Amsterdam, and actually this might be more of the color that I'm looking for. Huh. Yeah, it actually, well, it's a little reddish, but I can mix it up with a little white. You know what? I'm going to use this, because these paints are now so dry, almost, because I never use the non-air version of Army Painter anymore, that is going to be a hell to actually get onto the board. So I'm just going to add this, a little bit of that. I don't need much, because after all, I only have one mini to paint. Yeah, I'm just going to use the main dry brush again. Now I will have to mix this up with a little bit of white, because right now it is very, very dark. So let's just see how that goes. So I'm just going to pat it. Sorry, this is a little bit off camera. I don't have a lot of space here, but this is starting to look a little bit more like what I want. What do you think? Right? Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit to it. That looks perfect. And again, you know, if these beanies don't all look exactly the same, so say that I had you know, a number of thugs next to each other, and one just happens to be a little bit more brighter red than the other ones, that's fine. It really is. It's just, you know, you're not going to notice on the board. Okay, now it looks like I'm working in a salon doing makeup for old ladies. Okay, let's try this. And you can see immediately, like, the white, obviously, within the paint is going to shine through a lot more than the pinkness of it. Although you could see it, like, maybe a little bit down there on the base. There's a little bit more pink. And that's fine, because all we're looking to do here is really just lighting the overall miniature up a little bit, because the contrast paint was just too thick. Another issue with contrast paint that I have is that if I were to use contrast paint to actually do highlighting in a more professional manner than just dry brushing, then it would start reacting with the original contrast paint. And this way with acrylics, just plain old dry acrylics, it doesn't. And this is actually fine enough. It really is. Like this from a distance would just look like, okay, he's purple. It's a henchman. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to do the same, but now I am going to wash my brush just very briefly, quickly. I always cringe when I wash my dry brushes like this because I feel like it goes against the nature of a dry brush to really dunk it into a big container of water. And here too, I want to feel now, not see, whether or not the brush is dry enough. Okay, there's a little bit of moisture on it, which is fine because we do want that little bit of moisture. Now for the red one, the actual thug, I think I painted on the Madroth Flame. Geez, I can't even pronounce these names. So you can see it's more orange than red, but again, I was trying to go for a sort of a similar look to the token, and I think I actually did a pretty good job. But again, if you want a darker, you can go with a Doomfire Magenta, or even like Blood Angels Red, if you really want that dark, gritty look. But this was actually all right. And I think actually when I painted these, I'll do this in a minute with the second miniature, I actually watered the contrast a little bit down because it was really just too dark. Like you can barely see that I zenithaled it before I applied the contrast paint. And that is just technique. I admit that I am just not good at zenithaling and contrast. To get a better contrast, so the grooves being darker and the surfaces being light, like this one, if the paint doesn't do it by itself, then maybe in the red, looks like he's kissing his chest. Ooh, hello there. Then you could, just apply like a darker shade and just dry brush it white, before you apply the contrast paint, just to get the contrast going. But anyway, okay, so a color for this one, I need a red. Now I am just going to go for a plain old red here. I think actually this red may be a little bit too thick, and it may actually, when I apply it, turn into pink with white. So what I'll do is instead, I'll apply a little bit of yellow to it, because yellow with red just turns it to a brighter shade of red, more orangey, which is actually what you want. You don't want red to turn into bright pink in the highlights. Again, it doesn't make that much of a difference because look at this guy. He looks like the contrast is way out there on this one. And it does look like it's almost, what do you call it? It's almost just pure white that's applied to it. But in this case, I want to experiment a little bit. Not too much because I have like 50 more of these characters to actually paint. But, okay, so it was already a little bit moist, the brush. I'm going to apply that and see how that looks like. Yeah, I'm actually quite happy. I'm just going to apply just ever so slightly, a little bit of white to it. It does need to pick up. I don't know if this picks up, but what do you think? This is getting to that right shade. It's at least going to be a lot lighter on this miniature, but yeah, I have way too much paint on here. Let me get rid of it. You can already see, well, if I actually point the camera to it, that the red is like distinctive of the pink that I applied to the purple one. So this is definitely a more sort of rosé kind of orange applied to it. There's, oh my God, there's tons of paint on this thing. I'm so glad that I didn't apply it already for the sake of brevity. Okay, so I think this should be enough. Let's do the test. Ooh, madam, you look so beautiful. Ooh, see, now there was a big glob of red there. You want to really take that off. Okay, there you go. Looks like I've been in an actual fight. A fight of Marvel United. I'm just going to apply it. See, it's getting like definitely some highlights in there. Yep, happy with that as well. Doesn't take very much, a few brushes. That's it, I'm done. Much lighter, much more in line with this. I might do like a final white on there because after all, the tokens also have like very stark comic-y white on there. I think that's not a bad way to go. But yeah, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's do it. I'm chuckling to myself because I feel like Bob Ross. I mean, who doesn't? Whoever does painting videos like this must inevitably be like, just put a cloud wherever you wanted. Happy little clouds, happy little accidents. Oh, Bob Ross. All right, so just pure white. Big old hair on my table. Don't know why. Short hair. Okay. Test. Get some white off. You really just want like very little white on there. Very little. Because you don't want that white to start dominating. And then I'm just going to do a Q brush. Sorry, not making sense right now. Trying to paint while talking. Okay. Often it's just enough to like just do like the tip of the head or the elbow here or the foot sticking out. Because like an impressionist painting, you're going to see it from a distance and be like, yep, okay, that works for me. Now I'm even going to do the blue one just to highlight that blue. Or, sorry, just contrast even more. There. Those are my three characters. Okay, now I'm going to quickly apply the contrast paint. I'll probably do it even without commentary because otherwise this video is getting too long. Already almost at an hour. Try to keep my videos below an hour, so we're going to fast forward this, okay? So, hit it. Okay, so now I'm back. I painted these three up. You could see maybe during the fast forward that, yeah, the red especially, but also the purple, unless I really watered down the contrast paint, it became like very bright red and it covered up all the zenithal efforts done previously. But yeah, if you just add a little bit of water to it, then you get a little bit more differentiation between, you know, the red and the white. And then the blue one was just perfectly fine the way it is. If pockets pool up with contrast paint, that's fine too. Again, these are henchmen. They're not the focus of the game. The focus actually should not even draw away from the Marvel heroes themselves, because you really are playing the heroes versus the villain. This is just to add the cinematic effect to it. Okay, so the last step that I'm just adding now to it is that I'm just going to apply a little bit of white dry brush, and of course I wipe it off on my board again, just to pick up like some bright highlights, because I don't think that these are bright enough. Ironically, you don't see that until you're done with the miniature because of the way that wet and dry manifests itself. But yeah, I'm just going to pick up some highlights there just to get the impression that I am looking at a comic book figure. What you could do really if you wanted to spend a lot of time on this, but again, you're defeating the purpose by doing so, is put some comic lines in there, some shade wash also from Army Painter, some black, just drip into like the grooves to sort of like bring out the lines. But yeah, again, don't want to spend too much time on these. So many mobs to paint, so little time. And really, and I'm leaning in towards it now, there's not a lot of rules. There's, in fact, no extra rules that I'm giving Marvel United with this. It's just for cinematic purposes. Okay, That's it. That was my painting session. I am going to go back to the game table and show how this all kind of fits together. Bear with me. Okay, so we are now back at the overall table, and the final step is basically just to turn the little diorama down here into a cinematic field. Now, before I do that, I just want to say that this has no extra house rules to it. I didn't change any of the rules of Marvel United. As I said, it is a perfectly well-balanced mechanical game that is fun to play. It's fast, it's quick. It doesn't need any of the stuff that you are seeing here, like especially from other games. But I do like to dress up my games. I do like to play toy soldiers or action figures in this case. And eventually I'm going to make a dungeon crawl that has these tiles purposefully in it. But as you see right now, I am going to now wave my trusty little wand and change right now this into this. As you will see, I have a little cinematic scene for in Times Square, and you can see the Falcon there as he rushes in and spots the civilians he needs to rescue. Play a card, which I can't really reach right now, but basically swoop in, and the two actions that you would see on the card, maybe move into this location, which he just did, and rescue a civilian. I'm here to save you. Thank you, sir. Are you going to be Captain America one day? I certainly am. And then maybe knock out a thug in the process. Maybe even place like a heroic action there. And heck, why not? Rescue another civilian and fight Crossbones, who's coming towards him. And that's all you do. You play out a little scene, a little theater of the mind, and that is it. That's how you play the cinematic Marvel universe. Until next time, when we dig a little bit more into the whole boss battle genre, keep exploring.
No.